Back in the garage, back in the garage, in the garage, in the garage, back in the garage today, back in the garage, back in the garage today. What's going on, guys? Back in the garage today, getting ready to work on a bike that we've had for years, but you've never seen on the channel. And that is Kristen's 2012 Ninja 650. I'm getting ready to change the oil on it. You probably saw from the title of the video, and there's a reason for that. I'm going over everything on the bike. We had the bike lowered. I took the lowering link out. We put the forks back where they belong. We're getting ready to sell the bike. She doesn't really ride it anymore, and while I really like this bike, if no one's riding it, there's no sense in keeping it. It's actually in really, really good mechanical shape. If she wouldn't have had this low speed, low side in the grass there, it would be in excellent cosmetic shape too. But anyway, let's start to tear some of this stuff off and get the oil changed on it. One more thing, while I like this bike, I hate working on sport bikes because you always have to remove a bunch of plastic on them in order to do anything, which is why I'm starting to prefer my adventure bikes, standard bikes, dirt bikes, those sorts of things, because you can tear them down in a matter of minutes versus God only knows how long this is going to take. Alright, so in order to access the fuel filter and the drain plug, the first thing we need to do is remove the middle fairing, which is this black part down here. According to the manual, I need to take a bunch of stuff off, but I'm going to try to take off as little as possible, and I'll kind of walk you guys through my process. Alright, so I've gone ahead and put the bike up on the rear wheel stand, just makes it a little bit easier. It's not leaned over anymore. Now I'm going to move back here. This is a 4mm hex head. We'll pull this out. There's one on each side, and then we'll get down to the plastic fasteners. Alright, so when it comes to these plastic fasteners, we have one here and then we have two more underneath. You got to be careful with these. Normally you can get in there with like a Phillips, but they can become brittle over time, and if they, there you go, pops right out. And if they do become brittle, there's a good chance you're going to break it, so just take it easy on them. We're going to get the ones out of the bottom down here, and then we'll move on and see what else is fastened up that we're going to have to take out. I think we can just leave the, I'm going to move the camera over here, leave where the Phillips were in, because now by removing the two hex heads on the back of this and these plastic fasteners, we can get this apart far enough that we can get the fuel filter is, it's going to be hard to see right now, is right back here behind the exhaust manifold, and then the drain plug's right back here. So if we can just, I don't know, I might grab like a stick or something to hold in here just to hold this open just a little bit. And if we're able to do that, we should be able to drain the oil without much problem. Alright, so we got the drain plug underneath the bike. Before we move on any further, we're going to pull out the fill cap here and just set it aside, and then we're going to work our way to the filter and get it loosened up. Alright, so we look back here behind the exhaust manifold, we can still see the filter. I'm just going to put a filter wrench on the end, spin that off, and let it drain out into the oil pan. Now, in order to make just enough room to get my wrench or my ratchet on here, I had to move the drain pan out for a second until I cracked that loose. Now I can slide the drain pan back under the bike. The big thing is I just want to make sure I hold this plastic far enough apart that we don't get oil all over it, otherwise it's just more stuff to clean up. So I should be able to spin this off by hand now. You can probably see the oil draining down out of there. You're going to get a little on the exhaust manifold, but we'll wipe that off when we get finished. Alright, we got the, well, we said the oil filter off the bike. Now we're going to move over to the drain plug. Alright, so over here on the left hand side of the bike, if we look right here, that is our drain plug. That is a 17mm plug. We're going to spin this out and let the oil drain out of the engine, and then we'll be ready to put a filter on and put some new oil in the crankcase. Alright, so here is a look at the genuine Kawasaki filter. There's the part number on it. This is the one we're going to use. While we're waiting on the crankcase to finish draining, I'm going to take a little bit of the new oil and just grease this seal up. Then we're going to spin it onto the motor. Alright, so before we spin this on, you want to make sure that you've cleaned up everything around where you pulled the filter off. Make sure the old gasket didn't stick. And then we're going to torque this down to 13 foot-pounds of torque. I'll put the newton meter up on the screen as well. Alright, so now with the filter on, the next thing we want to do is inspect our drain plug. Now I inspect mine and then went ahead and wiped it off. You may have noticed when I was draining the oil, this washer stuck to the engine. Make sure you do get this washer. It's recommended you replace it. If you don't have an extra one, that's okay. If this one's only been used once before, typically you can flip it over and use it once more. It's just a crush washer. We're going to reinsert this back into the oil pan, and we're going to torque it to 22 foot-pounds of torque or 30 newton meters. All right, so with the drain plug and the filter installed, next thing I'm going to do is take a paper towel and just clean up that exhaust manifold a little bit, and then we're going to put these fasteners back in. Back here on the back is where these Allen fasteners go back in. Just make sure you do have the washer collar, and as well as the little plastic clear piece, just keeps from scratching up the plastic. If you didn't bother to take out the Phillips like I did, you don't have to put those back in. You just have the 3 plastic ones, the 2 underneath and the 1 up here. So I'm going to get all that cleaned up, this fastened back up, and then we'll get some oil in the crankcase. All right, so with the plastic reattached, we need to refill the crankcase. I've already put a liter of oil in. It does call for 1.6 liters or 1.7 quarts. Once we get all this dumped in, we're going to put the filler cap back on, and then we're going to double check the oil level once we start up the bike. All right, so with the filler cap back on, now we are going to start up the bike. I want to make sure the oil cycles through the engine. And then you obviously have your sight glass down here. You will start to see it fill up. We want to make sure we're back up to about the midpoint. Now it does take, more than a few seconds, so I'll check this off camera here in just a moment. As long as that comes up to where it should be and I have no leaks sprung out on the ground, then we're good to go. All right, guys, so despite my complaining about working on sport bikes, it wasn't that big a deal to change the oil on this bike. What was it, 3 plastic fasteners and 2 metal ones I actually had to remove, and I was able to access everything pretty easily. Obviously, all you need is basically 2 quarts of oil in order to change this, and a new oil filter, a 17mm wrench, and an oil filter wrench, and also an Allen wrench and a flat blade screwdriver. But anyway, not that big a deal, pretty easy. Should take you start to finish less than a half an hour. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider hitting that subscribe button, because if you like motorcycles, this is the place to be. If you have any questions about changing the oil on this 650 Ninja, or any questions about the Ninja in general, ask them quick, because we're probably going to sell this thing pretty soon and it's not going to be around much longer. Speaking of the Ninja, I have a few more things I just want to go over, because whoever buys it, I want to make sure everything is in tip-top shape. So I got to get back to work on this. But anyway, again, let me know if you have any questions down in the comment section below. And as always, I'll talk to you again soon.